Now, it is day 2 of F1 testing in Barcelona. Let's go there live to speak to Rachel Brooks. Very good morning to you, Rachel.
Good morning, yes, I'm in the pit lane here at the moment. Ted Kravitz has joined me from Sky Sports F1, just watching the cars go out, Ted, and the one we're going to be talking about first has just left the garage, the McLaren. Difficult day again yesterday, and they're not expecting an awful lot of running today either.
No, just explain what the problem is. It's a faulty seal, probably only costs around £5, and it's a problem with the quality. It's not a design issue, and they're working on a new seal. It's in the hybrid system, what we used to call the KERS, the energy recovery system. So it's a small thing, but as the Toro Rosso goes out behind us, McLaren know, as all the other teams know, that anything you can't get done at the races is going to hurt you. Anything you can't get done in the tests is going to hurt you in the races. So McLaren are building up trouble for themselves for the first part of the season. The consequences of what happens at this test are going to be felt at the Australian Grand Prix, at the Malaysian Grand Prix, the Chinese Grand Prix and the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first 4 races. So even if it's just a small thing like this, it stops the car. And if you stop the car, then you can't put proper stress on the engine. You can't find out if your cooling is good enough. You can't find out if your brakes are good enough. You can't get proper readings on your aerodynamics. And McLaren also tell us that the engine hasn't run on full power at all yet. So they really don't know where they are. It's a very difficult situation for them.
They've done just 100 laps now in total in the 5 days so far, if my maths is correct, I think it is, which is what Mercedes managed to get done in the single day at the first test. They are massively behind, aren't they? Let's not make any bones about this.
We shouldn't be surprised. It's a new engine supplier, so they are as unprepared as all the rest of them were when the rules changed last year. So that's what we would expect with a new engine supplier and the complexity of these new cars. Here is the McLaren coming down the pit lane now. So what they're concentrating on at the moment is aerodynamic testing. That's why we've got all these sensors just behind the front wheels, and really it's quite the most instrumentation I've seen on any one car in any of these pre-season tests so far. Really, there is quite a lot to learn about how the airflow, what that is doing is just measuring the airflow and the pattern of the airflow over the front wing and then round the front tyres. Because they've got some new ideas around the front of the car. It's quite adventurous aerodynamically car, but they just don't know whether it's working or not because the engine and the energy recovery system, the hybrid system, isn't working yet. And that's the irritating trouble for McLaren as we speak.
I'll just let the Toro Rosso go past. I mean, I've spoken to them. They've said because that's new seal that's been redesigned isn't coming till tomorrow, they're just going to run for as long as they can today until what happened yesterday to Jenson quite possibly happens again to Fernando Alonso. So all sorts of tests going on. But elsewhere up and down the pit lane, Mercedes had a good day, apart from Lewis Hamilton being unwell. We hear he's feeling better today, but Nico Rosberg, who had a trapped nerve, is in the car now and has also just announced he's about to be a dad. Well, in August.
Yeah, congratulations to Nico and his wife Vivian. So they're expecting, and that'll be wonderful for them. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Rosberg doing any particularly fast runs. He's been doing constant speed runs down the straight, as they haven't been going as fast as that car. We don't know about the trapped nerve in his neck, whether it's giving him any pain. We don't know if the very cold conditions we've got, and we've got our safety tabards on, keeping us warm, haven't we? But
not really keeping us warm.
Okay, well, I hope it's okay, you know, Nico Rosberg's neck, because it's a very high loading, lots of fast corners around this track, and you really, apparently, drivers tell us, feel it in your neck at the end of the day. So if he has got a nerve problem in his neck, then that might be a factor for them. We might well see the test driver, Pascal Wehrlein, back in the car. But for now, apparently, in the cool of the morning, it's okay.
And just finally, for the moment, we'll talk about Lotus. Topped the timesheets yesterday, towards the end of the day. Bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, it was on the soft tyre, and Lotus were obviously chasing lap times yesterday, so I don't think we should pay too much attention to them being quickest. Even Pastor Maldonado, the driver, couldn't really explain why they were so fast. But we do have a new British driver with Lotus in form of their test driver, Jolyon Palmer. He's on track today, so it's good to see what last year's GP2 champion, Jolyon Palmer, has in his locker in terms of speed. And what's obviously, you know, a basically good car. So that's Rosberg going in. Would you say gingerly? I'm not quite sure, but we'll find out if he's feeling the pain in his neck or not a bit later in the day. But yeah, Jolyon Palmer, now the test driver at Lotus, getting his hands on what is basically a good car. I don't think they're going to be challenging for the championship, neither do they. They've got a new Mercedes engine in the back of it. They dumped the Renault of last year. And so, yeah, we'll hear from Jolyon Palmer at the end of the day and see what he has to say about the new car.
Thanks very much, Ted. We did see the Red Bull earlier on go out. Daniel Ricciardo went out in the Red Bull, but stopped at the end of the pit lane. So some early morning exercise for the mechanics as they sprinted down here and brought the car back to the Red Bull garage, as you saw with Mercedes. The shields go up around the cars at testing. They're allowed to do it here, but come the first race, we will see the cars in all their full glory close up. But that's it for now from Barcelona. We'll have updates for you throughout the day.
Rachel, thanks very much.
Day 2 of the second pre-season test in Barcelona is underway. Almost all of the cars went straight out as the lights turned green. Kimi Raikkonen was the first in the Ferrari. He set the second fastest time yesterday. But just 8 minutes in, Red Bull brought out the first red flag of the day when Daniel Ricciardo stopped at the end of the pit lane. Nico Rosberg is in the car for Mercedes. He had been in doubt with a trapped nerve in his neck. His teammate Lewis Hamilton is said to be feeling better after missing most of yesterday with a fever. Rosberg also announced this morning that he and his wife are expecting a baby girl in August. Congratulations, British driver and Lotus reserve Jolyon Palmer gets his first go in the E23. Palmer won the GP2 title last year. Lotus set the fastest time yesterday with Pastor Maldonado in the car. And it's Fernando Alonso in the McLaren. Plenty of aero sensors on the car for them. As you can see, that's to measure the airflow around the car. They're only expecting to do limited running while they wait for an engine part to be delivered. Well, you can keep across all of the action from...
So let's get over to day 2 of F1 testing in Barcelona. Rachel Brooks is there for us. Rachel, what are the teams focusing on today?
Well, it's a mixture, Tom, depending on where they are in their programme right now. The likes of Nico Rosberg and the Sauber with Marcus Ericsson in it are just pounding round lap after lap after lap around this circuit here in Barcelona. For them, it's a case of let's run the car and do some long runs in it, see if anything breaks. For those who aren't quite at that stage, or a little bit further back, the likes of Red Bull, Daniel Ricciardo, he's getting up there. He's done more than 20 laps now today, which is good for them. They are a little bit behind. He admitted that last night. They're still trying to do some of the work they would have liked to have got done probably in Jerez. But for the likes of McLaren, you mentioned the aero sensor they had on there. If we have a closer look at it, you'll see quite a few of the cars running these today. They look like a big square grille attached to the car. It's called an aero rake, and it measures the airflow as it goes around the car, because although we have all this talk of engines and power units, aerodynamics is still king in Formula One, and the team's all keen to get the very best out of the cars that they possibly can. If you see a tall black fin on top of the cars at any point today, that's measuring the air speed as it goes over the top of the car. So those are the sort of things you might see on some of the cars today if they're not doing these long runs, the likes of Mercedes and Sauber. Some of the other teams doing this aerodynamic work. And talking of fins, actually, we heard yesterday the news that the FIA have said drivers are not allowed to change the design of their helmets during the season now. Well, the FIA apparently, according to some of the media in Germany, had wanted to bring in a fin onto F1 cars, similar to those that run in the endurance race at Le Mans, with the driver number on it to identify the cars easily, but that was rejected by the team. So what was brought in instead was this ban on changing the design of your helmet during the season. Sebastian Vettel, we know, likes to change his every time he won a race. Well, he won't be able to do that anymore. They have to keep the same design all season. So we'll see those unveiled by the drivers in Australia as they keep those designs now for the whole season. More rules being brought in all the time, but as yet the FIA yet to decide on any major changes for the sport. Their meeting last week didn't come up with any of those, but I'm sure that's a debate that will rumble on.
Rachel, thank you. So let's... Day 2 of second pre-season testing in Barcelona is underway. Almost all of the cars went straight out as the lights turned green. Kimi Raikkonen was the first in the Ferrari. He set the second fastest time yesterday. But just 8 minutes in, Red Bull brought out the first red flag of the day when Daniel Ricciardo stopped at the end of the pit lane. Nico Rosberg is in the car for Mercedes. He had been a doubt with a trapped nerve in his neck. His teammate Lewis Hamilton is said to be feeling better after missing most of yesterday with a fever. Rosberg also announced this morning that he and his wife are expecting a baby girl in August. British driver and Lotus reserve Julian Palmer is in the E23 today. Palmer won the GP2 title last year. Lotus set the fastest time yesterday with Pastor Maldonado in the car. Palmer tested for Force India at the end of last season. They're running their 2014 car at this test, as their 2015 model isn't ready yet. And it's Fernando Alonso in the McLaren. They're only expected to do limited running today while they wait for an engine part to be delivered. But still plenty to learn for Honda ahead of motorsport Yashui Arai and racing director Eric Boulier.
Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo has set the fastest time this morning on day 2 of the second pre-season test in Barcelona. Ferrari's Kimi Räikkönen was the first to go out as the lights turned green. He's been the second fastest so far, 100th of a second slower than Ricciardo. And just 8 minutes into the day, Ricciardo brought out the first red flag when he stopped at the end of the pit lane. It actually had very little impact on his session. He's already passed 60 laps for the day. Nico Rosberg is in the car for Mercedes, has clocked up 65 laps. He had been a doubt with a trapped nerve in his neck. His teammate Lewis Hamilton is said to be feeling a bit better after missing most of yesterday with a fever. And British driver and Lotus reserve Julian Palmer has done 31 laps in the E23 today. He won the GP2 title last year, set the fastest time yesterday with Pastor Maldonado, and Palmer tested for Force India at the end of last season. They're running their 2014 car at the test as their new model isn't ready. Perez has been third quickest. Yes, Fernando Alonso and the McLaren, they're only expecting to do limited running today while they wait for an engine part to be delivered, but still plenty to learn for Honda ahead of motorsport. Yashui Arai and racing director Eric Boulier, they have the lowest lap count of the morning with just 28.
Anything you can't get done in the tests is going to hurt you in the races. So McLaren are building up trouble for themselves for the first part of the season. The consequences of what happens at this test are going to be felt at the Australian Grand Prix, at the Malaysian Grand Prix, the Chinese Grand Prix and the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first 4 races. So even if it's just a small thing like this, it stops the car. And if you stop the car, then you can't put proper stress on the engine. You can't find out if your cooling is good enough. You can't find out if your brakes are good enough. You can't get proper readings on your aerodynamics. McLaren also tell us that the engine hasn't run on full power at all yet. So they really don't know where they are. It's a very difficult situation for them.
And you can...
Well, we can cross live now to Rachel Brooks, who's in Barcelona. Hi, Rachel. Now, we heard the news yesterday that Manor GP, formerly Marussia, of course, are now coming out of administration. What part could Ferrari, their engine supplier, play in helping them return to the grid?
Well, they've taken a step closer to coming out of that administration and getting on to the grid for 2015. And part of that is to come to some sort of agreement with their creditors. Now, their 2 biggest creditors are McLaren for some the technical side of things. They've been supplying technical help and also some parts. And then Ferrari, who've been supplying the engines, of course, to Marussia as they were formerly, and Manor F1 as they will be for 2015 if they get to the grid. And we spoke to their new team principal, Maurizio Arrivabene. He gave a press conference earlier, and I asked him what sort of agreement they'd come to with Manor F1 in order to supply them again for 2015, and this is what he said.
We said to them yesterday that we are going to supply them with the 2014 engine. There is nothing in writing at the moment, but our answer at the moment is yes. 2014.
Well, Rachel, what has Arrivabene had to say about how his new driver, Sebastian Vettel, is settling in?
Well, he's been pretty upbeat, actually. He said the atmosphere around Ferrari is great at the moment. He even went as far as to say that Kimi Raikkonen is smiling again. He said, that's your big scoop. Kimi is smiling again. In fact, I had to ask him, are you okay? And apparently Kimi's answer was, yes, I'm good, which was, we all know, is pretty unusual for Kimi to be smiling around the F1 paddock. So something must be right in that Ferrari car this year. His new teammate, of course, is Sebastian Vettel. And Arrivabene, or Maurizio as he wants us all to call him, told us the story of how Sebastian was lured to Ferrari, and told us that it was after Sochi, in fact, after the Russian Grand Prix last year, that this deal all came about with Sebastian Vettel. And we can tell you now exactly how it came about, and it involved Michael Schumacher's personal manager, Sabine Keim.
Sabine called Sebastian. Sebastian have some doubt. He was asking, what about Ferrari? It's, you know, I don't know the team, I don't know the approach. And Sabine simply described to Seb the atmosphere that she found at the time of Michael. And he said, it's a great team. It's like a family. And Seb was listening.
Well, also, as well as that call from Sabine, Sebastian Vettel also got a call from the Fiat president, Sergio Marchionne. He took over from Luca de Montezemolo, of course, as the head of Ferrari as well. And he called Sebastian personally to persuade him to come to Ferrari. And he's done just that now. And Sebastian Vettel must be looking at this car thinking he's made the right choice, because it's been looking pretty good on track. A lot of people have been impressed by it. We wondered if those times in Jerez were real, whether they were just doing some low fuel runs. But it's been pretty consistent. And it does look as though Ferrari have made a pretty decent step forward this year. Whether they can catch Mercedes, well, we'll have to wait until Australia to find out.
Be interesting to see, Rachel. Many thanks for that.
Lewis Hamilton has recovered from illness and is back in the Mercedes this afternoon. He missed most of yesterday's running with a fever, but takes over from Nico Rosberg, who was originally planned to be in the car all day. Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo brought out a red flag just 8 minutes into day 2 when he stopped at the end of the pit lane. That had very little impact on his session. He set the fastest time of the morning. Nico Rosberg completed 65 laps as well. He'd been a doubt to test today, as he has a trapped nerve in his neck. Rosberg also announced this morning that he and his wife are expecting a baby girl in August. British driver and Lotus reserve, Jolyon Palmer, in the E23 today. He won the GP2 title last year. He managed 31 laps in the Lotus this morning, but was second slowest overall. Palmer tested for Force India at the end of last season. They're running their 2014 car at this test, as their 2015 model's not ready. Sergio Perez, third quickest. Fernando Alonso is in the McLaren. They've managed more laps today than on any other day this winter. Still the lowest lap count of the morning with just 28. And Alonso's old team Ferrari have been going well all winter. Kimi Raikkonen was second fastest this morning, but new team principal Mauricio Arrivabene doesn't expect them to be title challengers this season.
I don't believe in the winter champion, you know. So we have some progress versus last year, and this is quite clear. But I'm not going to tell you that we will fight for the championship. That is something I'm not out of mind to tell you. Okay, we are going to beat our competitor, especially Mercedes.
And Arrivabene also confirmed that Ferrari are ready to supply MANA GP, formerly Marussia, with a 2014 engine to help them return to the grid. MANA announced yesterday that they are coming out of administration after agreeing a deal with their major creditors, which include Ferrari.
We said to them yesterday that we are going to supply them with the 2014 engine. There is nothing in writing at the moment, but our answer at the moment is yes. 2014.
Don't forget, you can keep up to date with all the Formula One.
We've just seen Lewis Hamilton completed 89 laps today after recovering from illness, and the world champion's been speaking to Rachel Brooks.
How are you feeling?
I've had better days.
You still sound a bit croaky. Is it tough to drive the car at those sort of speeds when you're not feeling 100%?
Yesterday was because I had quite a high fever, so I was everything was at warp speed. But today is better.
And how was the car feeling this afternoon? You got a lot of laps in?
Yeah, it was good to get lots of. Nico got 60 odd laps in, and then I think I got 80 at the end. So generally a good day in terms of reliability and that. So
is that a race simulation you were trying to do out there at one point?
Yeah.
Is it quite nice to be able to do that at this stage in pre-season?
Well, we already did it the first test quite a few times.
So well ahead of the game at the moment. Then, how does the car feel? Can you feel its potential?
Definitely. And there's things that we know that it's very obvious of areas we can work on, and there's still small kind of gremlins popping up every now and then, like we saw yesterday. But team's done an incredible job so far, so we're just going to keep working away.
Is it hard to be patient at the moment before you can actually unleash it and see what it's really got?
Not really. Well, not right now. I don't really have the energy to unleash it, so it's cool.
First of all, Nico, how's your neck?
Yeah, so a bit of an issue, but I've been lucky, I think, and everything's okay. So I'm just being a bit cautious. So I decided to get out the car over lunch, and I'm thankful that Lewis was able to jump in. But everything seems okay.
How did the car feel this morning? Different to Jerez? Any improvements since then?
Yeah, it's a different track, and so it's a bit different, yes. But in general, didn't start off too well this morning, but then found our way quickly. Just changing the setup, and then in the end, I was quite happy with it.
We're seeing some of the other teams now trying to put quick laps in. How much do you want to see what this car's really got?
Well, of course, I'm excited, and I want to go out there and do qualifying all the time. But we need to. It's everything at the right time. There's a right time for everything. Yeah. So at the moment, we're focusing on just getting the miles done and working on the setup and things like that.
Any surprises out there from the other teams that you've seen?
Yeah, we are surprised with the pace. For example, from Ferrari in general, and Red Bull has been quick today. So yeah.
All right, now then, to day 2 of testing in Barcelona, and world champion Lewis Hamilton was back in the car after recovering from illness that cut short his session yesterday.
Well, it was also an encouraging day for Red Bull after Daniel Ricciardo clocked the fastest time and completed over 140 laps.
It's hammer time, tweeted Mercedes to announce Lewis Hamilton's unscheduled return to action. He racked up over 80 laps, making up for mileage lost to illness on day 1. It's now 1-1 in the Mercedes Fitness Stakes. Nico Rosberg was subbed at the end of the morning session to rest his sore neck. But had Rosberg offered a glimpse of Mercedes' true pace? On a cold track and on slower medium tyres, he was barely 0.2 off the quickest day 1 mark. If that was enviable running, this was the kind teams can do without. Red Bull's mechanics retrieved a car that was last out and first to conk out. They recovered well. Daniel Ricciardo completed well over 100 laps, including a race simulation, and set the week's benchmark time. At McLaren, Honda boss Yasuhisa Arai had talked of a productive day ahead. Hot air, given their ongoing troubles. Fernando Alonso stamped purposefully on the accelerator, a sign he could push the new engine. For a time, he was quickest through the speed trap. He also shouldered his share of aero test chores. Elsewhere, Britain's Jolyon Palmer had his first shift in the Lotus. Williams attracted attention by perching Neymar on their pit wall. His compatriot Felipe Massa's stats were unremarkable, but both he and Valtteri Bottas rate the new car. At a busy news conference, Ferrari revealed how Michael Schumacher's manager helped convince Sebastian Vettel he should join them. Is that looking an increasingly smart move? Kimi Raikkonen maintained their record of appearing in the timesheet's top 2 every day this winter. Craig Slater, Sky Sports.
All right, let's cross live now to Rachel Brooks in Barcelona. Rachel, is there any sign that the other teams are catching Mercedes now?
Well, we're starting to see a little bit more. We're halfway through the pre-season testing programme now, this being the end of day 2 of the second test, and we're seeing a little bit more of what the other teams have to offer. For example, we saw some quicker times from Williams today, and the Ferrari continue to be competitive, but at the moment we just won't know. It's thought at the moment that possibly there is even still as much as 0.6, 0.7 of a second between Mercedes and their next closest rival. We haven't seen the full potential of the Mercedes yet, and Lewis Hamilton's quick time was set on a different tyre compound, so we won't really know until we get to Australia and that qualifying session in Australia, but little things are starting to show. But at the moment the two Mercedes drivers very much being held back. They're not showing that car to its true potential yet, but they've had some illness of their own, of course. Nico Rosberg's neck keeping him out of the car this afternoon. Handing it over to Lewis Hamilton, who himself is a little bit under the weather, but I spoke to him afterwards and asked him about his day today.
I've had better days.
You still sound a bit croaky. Is it tough to drive the car at those sort of speeds when you're not feeling 100%?
Yesterday was because I had a really quite a high fever, so I was kind of, everything was at warp speed, but today is better.
And how was the car feeling this afternoon? You got a lot of laps in?
Yeah, it was good to get lots of, Nico got 60 odd laps in, and then I think I got 80 at the end, so generally a good day in terms of reliability.
How's your neck?
Yeah, so a bit of an issue, but I've been lucky, I think, and everything's okay. So I'm just being a bit cautious. So I decided to get out the car over lunch, and I'm thankful that Lewis was able to jump in. But everything seems okay.
How did the car feel this morning? Different to Jerez? Any improvements since then?
Yeah, it's a different track, and so it's a bit different, yes. But in general, didn't start off too well this morning, but then found our way quickly. You know, just changing the setup, and then in the end, I was quite happy with it.
Rachel, talk to us a bit about ManaGP, formerly known as Marussia, of course. Now, they've announced that they're coming out of administration. What part do you think that Ferrari, who are their engine supplier, could play in helping them return to the grid?
Well, Kate, they've paid their entry fee for the 2015 season, but in order to get onto the grid, you need a car and you need an engine. So it's really important that they have the backing of those suppliers. Now, Ferrari and McLaren were both their two major creditors when the company got into trouble. So it was really important they could reach agreement with those two teams before they even begun to plan for an entry into the 2015 season. They've moved a step closer to that. They've come to an agreement with Ferrari over the power units that will go in their cars, and I asked their new team principal, Mauricio Arriva-Bene, about it a little earlier today.
We said to them yesterday that we are going to supply them with the 2014 engine. There is nothing in writing at the moment, but our answer at the moment is yes. 2014.
So there is an agreement there then at the moment, but it's just a step closer. Nothing definite yet that we will see them, but they are making all the moves in the right direction, both Manor F1 and Ferrari, to try and get the team back in onto the grid for next season. But as for the end of today, well, you'd have to say that Red Bull probably most pleased with their day here, more than double the number of laps they've managed on any other day of testing so far. But it's certainly looking very interesting as we head towards the start of this 2015 season. 2 more days here in Barcelona for this week to go, and the final 4 next week.
All right, thanks very much, Rachel.
Gaspar at the